Hi, and welcome to the Diablo podcast, brought to you by PureDiablo.com, your home for a community, an ever growing wiki, and this podcast. I am your host, Xanth, and today I am joined by MacroBioBoi
Oh, hello, you beautiful individuals.
and Neinball.
Oh, hi.
And first, before we get going, I want to give a shout out to the folks over at Diablo Next, the premier Spanish language Diablo site, for hooking me up with this robe, and gentlemen for coordinating with me. This is a huge catch. I am not a Diablo partner, and they were, and they were like, "Hey, said you wanted a robe, we'll get you a robe." So from here on out, this is the attire. I don't see any reason to change it. It's a high quality robe. It looks good. It is 32 degrees out. This is keeping me warm. I feel no reason to change that. Gentlemen, how are your robes?
Muy bien. Muchas gracias, mis amigos de la familia here. These are awesome. These are actually wildly high quality costuming. I'm a big LARPer, live action role player, and these are quite frankly actually much higher quality than I was expecting. So shout outs to the tailor who made these.
Yeah, I think it's like 80 degrees outside, so I'm a little warm.
Yeah.
Florida
Advantage
problems.
winter? Winter in this robe? I'm
Yeah, I
okay
mean
with it.
it works for me. It's a solid 20 degrees with wind chill outside. That's negative degrees in Celsius. So we're doing pretty good in here right now.
I'm definitely not about any of that, that's for sure.
Yeah, I don't fault you. It does kind of suck, but the robe keeps me warm. So thank you to the guys at Diablo Next. This is awesome, and to the folks over at Diablo for making these things happen. Because yeah, I'm just saying I look pretty good. Uh, all right,
You got the
uh,
hair for it.
I didn't create this podcast just to show off a robe, though. Like that's secondary. This isn't a robe-based podcast. It is a Diablo podcast, and I want to talk about Diablo 4 because it is January. We are 5 months away from the release of the game that we've been so hyped for, and part of that hype is getting to talk to people who've actually played it. Uh, you both were in the press beta not that long ago. Um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
Yeah,
yeah.
I was like, wait a minute, I've played this game. Oh, you're right, I did play this game. Wow, that's a good game.
I'm sure it only feels like a dream at this point. Uh, so you were the last ones to play Diablo 4 most recently. I thought it'd be kind of fun to pick your brains about what you experienced, and what you liked, what you disliked. And I thought a great place to start would be with classes, right? This one of the first decisions we're going to make when we enter into the game. I can only assume, right? Is what we're going to play, unless they've correct me if I'm wrong. Did they change something? Do I have to make another choice before I'm choosing my class?
I think
No,
you have to put in your credit card information to buy it, and then I think you at least need to have a BattleNet account. Maybe you pick your icon. No, but the first thing you do is you pick your class and you go, okay, which one of these cool people sitting around a campfire resonates with me the most?
Um,
and I'll just say they haven't made any changes, so you do have to choose something other than Druid because they're still terrible.
Oh,
that's an
well,
impasse here.
who knows?
Uh, that that's it. I'm not getting it. No, there's going to be a druid. We know there's going to be a druid. Don't lie to me like that. I have to believe you. 'Cause. Okay. Anyways, we speaking of druids, we know there wasn't the option to play a druid, so we had three classes to look at. We had barbarian, wizard, and rogue, or I should say sorceress. Sorry, I know that's going to
Sorceress.
trigger you. Um, so let's start with the one that has we've seen the most, right? We've seen the barbarian the most because we're going to count wizard and sorceress as being different. We've seen a barbarian in every Diablo iteration outside of one. So let's start there. What were your impressions with the barbarian class? Your likes, your dislikes, um, and if we're going to rank it, we're going to rank this class out of the three you had. what are you going to give it? Now, that's a lot, but I'm going to stop talking and let you guys just hash this out.
I'm gonna be ignorant, so I'd rather Neinball go first because
Oh,
I'm just gonna cut straight to the quick. I
the,
don't want it to
well,
become all of that.
this one's gonna be quick because in the press beta, I leveled my barbarian to 10. So yeah, I really didn't get a lot of playtime on it at all. It was all rogue, or mostly was rogue and sorceress with a preference towards the sorceress. So I didn't get a lot of play. I didn't play the barbarian enough for me to even make an opinion, honestly.
Okay,
Did you not want to play
I
it
would.
because it was bad?
It just is barbarian is just in all the previous games has just never really spoken to me. You know, even in like Diablo 3, I think I have like 40 hours on the barbarian. You know, like I think the next lowest one is Witch Doctor at like 400 hours or something. So it's not my class.
This hurts my heart so much. I have I I have more hours on the Barbarian in D3 than you do, and I only have about that many hours in D3. Quite honestly, the that's hey, I'm not an elitist. Diablo 3 is a phenomenal game, best multiplayer ARPG out there. Y'all should probably try it out before Diablo 4 releases. That being said, the Barbarian was the best level 1 through 25 experience I had in the press beta. It was not even close, in my opinion, honestly. At the very least, he feels most fleshed out, the best mechanically. He has the skill that says if you hit something at half health, it dies, and then you just get to do that again for free. And then when you walk up to a boss, it chunks them for about an eighth of their life, and that's the skill Death Blow. It's wild, just like how much power they put into this one class, even in comparison to the Rogue, who I think is pretty close. We're not necessarily talking about the Rogue, but Barbarian pound for pound was easily the strongest thing I piloted during the press beta that we got access to.
So, obviously a differing of opinions in how you chose to spend your time. Uh, when do you get access to the class mechanic? And it's Arsenal, right? Like they get an Arsenal system?
Yeah, so the class mechanics were a little bit weird in the press beta. Every class has them. The Barbarian's arsenal system, for people who have not seen it yet, basically, when you use a weapon type, you level up that weapon type and you get more bonuses based off of using that weapon more. It's pretty classic, like MMORPG or just RPG in general. You swing an axe long enough, you do more damage with an axe. The like the keystone function of the Barbarian arsenal system had a quest in an area you couldn't get to. So you couldn't unlock the last part of it. So what that basically means is we don't really know the full impact of the arsenal system. It was just kind of your primary skill, which uses one type of your weapons, got better as you leveled up to a cap, versus something like the Sorceress, who has the enchantment slots. And then correct me if I'm wrong, because I didn't play too much of the Rogue, but I don't think you could actually like fully unlock the Rogue
I,
specialization.
I think it's you only got combo points, and that was it. Yeah,
Yeah, so
the other mechanics. I think the second tier mechanic you could unlock, but it wasn't. I think it was also in an area that you didn't have access to.
so we kind of this was basically supposed to be a preview, right? Supposed to be this like very early game experience, and that was kind of like crystallized in the fact that every class's specialization wasn't fully unlocked during this playthrough. So the arsenal system basically said a minor numerical increase in damage and effectiveness with the weapons that you were using, but I really think it's just like the skill tree itself where the barbarian clearly shines. I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm biased because I definitely put the most hours into Barbarian, and then Sorceress was my second class that I put some hours into. I don't. Did you play? You said you played to 10 on the Barbarian 9,
Yeah, that was all that I got.
and then did you also play the Sork at all, or?
Yeah, no, I think I got the Sork up to like 22 and the Rogue up to something
Okay,
around
yeah,
that, like 20ish. Yeah.
yeah. So, like, all in all, between playing them all, the Barbarian just felt very fleshed out without needing gear, which I think is a really good indicator of a skill tree that has been fine tuned. So You had really good generator skills that brought you utility once their damage fell off. Really good core skills that were your primary DPS output. I really liked Whirlwind. It was a little lackluster in some scenarios, but I liked it as a general tool. Really good cooldown skills. And then ultimately the ultimate skill, which was my favorite by far. I don't know if we want to get into that already, but it was Call of the Ancients, I think was the name of it. This was the coolest skill. Hold on, I just want to make sure I have the right name for it. It summons the Ancients from D2, my boys. It summons Korlik, Talik, and Maddock, and they just come out and they just absolutely, yeah, Call of the Ancients. They just show up, big blue, beautiful avatar men, and they just crush everything around you. They give you back resource, they heal you or something. I forget everything that they did, but oh man, that was chef's kiss. For me personally, as a D2 fanboy, that was exactly what I wanted.
That's actually I think a decent little transition, and we'll come back to the Barbarian. So, you really specialize in Diablo 2, right? And making this transition to Diablo 4, you know, there is a Barbarian in 2. We got one in 4. There are some mechanical differences, right? Where you're going from having potions and now you're gonna have to rely on a spender and a generator. How did that affect your interpretation of the class? I don't want to say do you have a favorite because it's too early to tell, but are you happy with this iteration building off of what you have played for years in Diablo 2?
Yeah. So, and just to give a little bit more context to that, so people know where this opinion is coming from, I think that Barbarian is the best class in Diablo 2, bar none. It's the strongest class. It's the best class. There's no question. It's the funnest class to play through, especially solo self-found. And then in Diablo 3, other than the monk when the game first came out, the class I have the most hours in is actually the Barbarian again. And I would say that while the Barbarian in Diablo 4 feels more like the Barbarian in Diablo 3 than in Diablo 2, I think that they have very much kept the character fantasy identity. A lot of people are saying the word aesthetic and character fantasy. I hate just repeating buzzwords like everybody else, but they've legitimately succeeded at making me feel like I'm playing a barbarian from the frigid north who's supposed to be a master of all weapons, who's supposed to just kind of be this unstoppable force of just like rage and destruction. So coming into Diablo 4, I'm very happy with how the barbarian mechanically feels and pilots. And I think that they've done a really good job of capturing its identity from the two previous iterations of games where they're pretty, they're distinctly different. I mean, everybody has a whirlwind. I think this is the best version of Whirlwind I've played, where it's not as cartoonish as Diablo 3, where you kind of literally just whirlwind through a greater rift the entire time without stopping. But it's not, wildly clunky and completely unintuitive like it is in D2. So I think they've succeeded, and I was very happy to be piloting this iteration of the Barbarian.
I feel like that's pretty high praise. As somebody like I kind of feel like I've got my feet in both camps, right? Like I love Diablo 2, I love Diablo 3. Like to hear that feels pretty good. I'm still not gonna play Barbarian. Sorry, just not.
Best class, best class in every game other than D3. But sure, live your best life, King.
I've made a mistake for so long that I can't change it. So I'm just going to stick with it. Okay. Um, and I like what I like. All right, so let's go back to the barbarian. You mentioned whirlwind, right? Any other skills stand out as one being fun or two needing work?
I feel like I've had my hand on the ball for a really long time. So Nine, I actually think it would be really good to hear, because you only played that level 1 through 10 experience.
Yeah.
Why'd you stop at 10? Was it playability? Was it time or
So this is actually going to get even worse than just the whole I stopped at 10. I literally only played the Barbarian up to level 10 to get into the Church of Light to hear one line of dialogue.
no.
Yeah, so I wasn't even like getting involved in the experience or anything like that. I literally there was a line of dialogue that I wanted to double check that I had, made some notes properly, and so it's like
I
I could make another sorceress, or hey, I could play a barbarian, and if it catches me, I can just keep going, and it didn't. I
I
got
think
my line of dialogue and I stopped playing.
there's going to be some people listening that are going to hear that, and one, it's going to go two camps. One, they're going to have some amazing respect for your commitment to lore, and then there's going to be a lot of people who are going to be like, you could, but just play it. Um,
Yeah,
I am in the admiration camp because I admire you.
I'm sorry.
So I got Neinball. Is it just the like close range melee aspect of a barbarian that doesn't appeal? Because both
I
the sorceress and the rogue are a little more ranged. Is it that, or tell me
I
why you
think it's
don't
just
like it?
like it's just like one of those ones that I've always been like, more affinity towards like the spell casting like archetype, to continue off of the class fantasy in aesthetics. It's definitely always been more of like a spell caster and such, even if it's like a close range melee spell caster or anything. But yeah, the the big like brutal warrior just doesn't call to me.
So
I'm not an ancient to be called.
a question for both of you, since we'll close out with final thoughts on Barbarian, but before we make that transition, this is the only melee class or traditional melee class that we have, right? So, or at least in the press beta. Um, did you notice any difference in combat as from melee to a ranged playstyle? Did it feel more dangerous to be close range? Um, or did did it seem relatively balanced depending on where you were? I know in Diablo 3 they implemented for your melee characters to have 30% reduced damage. Um, because they felt like that was a disadvantage having to be close all the time. Is there anything like that apparent, or is it just it is what it is?
I can. I'll start real quick with one experience where I felt like it's kind of hard, right? So we only got to play up to level 25, and I would argue that uh, God, there's no way for me to say this without sounding like an elitist. Uh, like pushing as many hours as you could, grinding out gear and stuff like that. There was one experience that I had that felt legitimately challenging, and I literally had to try multiple times to successfully clear it. And it was one of the strongholds in the Fractured Peaks where the amount of monsters that are attacking you. So it's a stronghold full of goatmen. There's like a big frozen goatman in the middle of it, and you have to go kill these three different kind of like elemental casters, and they summon a little mini boss there. And getting hit by monsters in this game kills you. It's weird. I think in D2 you get this a lot, like when you're lower level or you're on hardcore, you have to be really conscious of it. But once you get to higher levels, it's kind of like you have maximum block, you have maximum resistances. It kind of doesn't matter. In D3, it's like, ooh, if I let one of my cooldowns run out or one of my buffs run out, I'm in trouble. But if not, I should basically be able to clear this greater rift, whatever. And me trying the hardest I could with what I thought was the best skill tree possible as a melee barbarian, the difficulty in the stronghold forced me to kind of have to get lucky, like min-maxing how often my cooldowns were up, how I used my potions, avoiding enemy attacks as opposed to just kind of Zerg DPSing stuff. And I definitely felt like if I had more ranged tools or if I had a different skill set, I would have been more successful. But I had to work really hard to finish off this stronghold. And to kind of wrap back into what you're talking about, the idea of like melee versus ranged, one of the things I do like is that from the classes that I played, every build had a melee version of it and a ranged version of it. The barbarian has a skill called upheaval, which is kind of more of a ranged attack. You kind of do this like conal attack that you can do from pretty far away. The issue is that you kind of have to get in close to build up your resource. And I know not everybody kind of likes resource for a spender. To me, it's all mana. I don't know. To me, it's all kind of the same. I'm either spamming potions or I'm spamming skills. It's the same amount of APM. But like, oh, okay, I'm a ranged build, but I got to get in close because my generator, the most efficient one that I have for my build, requires me to be in deep. So that means I have to build my character to be able to do both. I don't know. It felt very dynamic to me. And if you want to play it one way, you could. If you want to play it another way, you could. If you wanted to go super fast, you had to work harder. If you wanted to kind of take things slow and have an easier time, you could, but it literally meant it was going to take longer. Right now, at least the three classes that we played felt like you can kind of do either one if you wanted to. It kind of depended on how try hard you wanted to be. Because there's like actually a ton of melee range skills on the rogue, right, Neinball? Like you can get in pretty melee.
Yeah, you can go for the rogue. You can completely build yourself. I did end up going range, but I kept looking at a bunch of all the items that I got kept dropping for some of the close range skills and such. And so I tried it out like a little bit here and there. But yeah, it had a fully playable close range play style that you could do. Combo
And like even
combo builders and finishers and such.
Even the sorceress, like my favorite version, or sorry, the sorcerer class, the sorceress. I'm gonna call her the sorceress. Even or I'm always gonna play her as the sorceress. The sorceress, even she, like my favorite version of the build, like the starting skill that I used, what was it? Arc Lash is a melee range kind of mini AoE. And the reason why I liked it is because it gave you this movement speed buff. So, if I'm willing to be in danger, I get to move between packs faster. Now I get to be more efficient. I don't know. I think the game's doing a pretty good job of giving you that option to play it how you like. Just to reiterate what I said.
Yeah, and that really it really doubles down on so far what we've seen, the developers wanting to allow the player to experience the game in however shape or form that they want. That they want to add a ton of diversity, so that way you can play like any type of build, or play style that you want, regardless of which class that you pick.
That's sounds great, honestly. If it's balanced to the point where I don't feel like I'm losing out because of it, I'm all for it, right? Um, like I've been playing a little bit of Path of Exile as of late. You always feel at a disadvantage if you're not killing quickly and at a distance, right? And I I don't mind having to get close. I like getting close. It feels gritty. It feels methodical, right? Um, so if that's an option, I would prefer to do that than that like have to be hiding the whole time. Um, Now we did get a question around itemization. So since we're on the Barbarian, the question was whether or not there were shields equipable. In your time in the press beta, did you find any way to go kind of sword and board? We know there's no traditional sword and board class, but could you do it with anything else?
I did not pick up a shield item in the press release beta, and I did not have a slot to put a shield in. If you read back the June quarterly update, they actually very specifically talk about like necromancer itemization in the game. So between the rogue, the sorcerer, and the barbarian, none of them had a shield slot. I know a lot of people feel very strongly about, I want to be able to use whatever items. I get that. I totally do. And also, I feel like I should bake this in a little bit. I feel almost like I'm corporate shilling over here, or I'm fanboying too hard. Official disclaimer.
You actually have to take the robe off. That'll
I
make
have to take the robe off.
It will burst into flames if you.
Official disclaimer. Everything that all of us are saying, at the very least, but I will only speak to myself, are literally my only opinions. I'm not paid in any way, shape, or form to push some kind of like weird agenda to hype up D4. These are my legitimate opinions coming from a historical, like tabletop RPG background. I've been playing D&D since I was 6 years old, y'all. That's 26 years of playing RPGs. games have historically restricted itemization for the purposes of balance, build identity, class identity, and fantasy identity. They're very important things. I understand wanting to do whatever you want to do, and I resonate with that. If a game can do it well, I love it. In D4, people can wear the items that they can. The Barbarian can wear 4 different weapons. Nobody else can wear 4 different weapons. The Rogue can wear 3 different weapons, but one of them is a ranged weapon. And the Sorceress could use either a 2-hander or a 1-hander and a focus. It looked like kind of almost like a secondary weapon, kind of like a spell book, but it gave you weapon damage. It was very cool. But it looks like item types that your character can equip are static. At least for right now, until we get an expansion, or maybe they change it coming out of the press beta. No, you're not going to have a sword and board Barbarian or Rogue. I don't know if you saw anything different, Neinball. I don't mean to trample over everything here. I talk a lot.
And no, did not see one shield whatsoever. So, yeah, and I mean, I'm fully in agreement with you. Being able to go through and make like the customized items also allows them to make more like unique experiences or unique items, specifically just for that class. Because if you go through with shields, and it's like, you look at it and it's just like there might be some generics that you can do that can like apply generally across all the classes, but usually it just ends up being, kind of pigeonholed or focused in on like one particular class anyway, whether it be like shields really focused in on the paladin, in D2, or mostly all coming down to the crusader, whether they're the actual shield or the crusader shield in D3. That it's like, yeah, you're gonna be equipping whatever is gonna be ends up being best for your particular build or your particular class anyways. And the way that they're going through and using legendary items in Diablo 4 to modify skills and diversify like builds and your systems and such, that it's just going to be better to make like those offhand choices class specific than it would be to try and pigeonhole some sort of generic thing into it, to compete. It's just better time and resources spent focusing and doubling down on the class identity than just trying to make something as a like, because that's the way it was.
Well, there you go, Twitter. We have that answer. And thanks, guys. I was curious too. I think you made some good points, and I'm in the camp that it's okay. I don't need to put a shield on everything. But playing hardcore, I kind of would like to. Just safety. But whatever. We'll be fine. So
Ooh,
before we move on,
can I touch on that very quickly?
yeah,
I think hardcore players are gonna die a lot in Diablo 4.
Yeah.
I think
bring it
hardcore.
on.
I'm again coming from a Diablo 2 hardcore. I kind of feel like that's what you think of when you think of hardcore RPGs. In the genres is D2, and I don't know how y'all are gonna survive in D4. Quite honestly, I took a lot of deaths. We went and fought a world boss. There was a bunch of random people around me. We went and fought the world boss. I died 13 times on world boss. I had broken gear, and I was just doing my shouts and my cooldown skills. It was wildly challenging. Sorry to railroad into that, but hardcore
I'm
players can finally be the elitists they want to be in Diablo 4 because it's wild.
I'm happy to talk about hardcore all the time. But I know it's a niche. But that to me is exciting, to have that little bit of challenge. And I think it's kind of interesting because you had made mention, like about like just kind of steamrolling a little bit with the barbarian and it feeling good. So to know that like you are able to be successful, but when you have to start mitigating death, it's a lot harder. Is all good news to me.
Yeah, it was. I made a lot of decisions with my character. Like, do I put on this piece of gear or this piece of gear? This one is DPS, so that's what I care about. But I took deaths, and if you're trying to play hardcore, the itemization question is like I'm also personally getting a lot like, oh, where's the itemization? Where's the itemization? Where's the itemization? And I felt like I was making more decisions per piece of gear that I picked up once I was mostly dropping rare and legendary pieces of gear than I make in most other times when I'm playing a game. In D2, I want some resistances, I want some life, I want some faster caster, I want some hit recovery. It, that's what I need to speed run the game. Here I was like, oh, this one gives me this much more strength, which is going to increase my defense or armor. I think it's called armor.
Armor, yeah.
Armor is a mitigates in D4. Armor mitigates damage types that you receive. It's part of your elemental damage reduction. It's part of your like full damage reduction. So it's like, oh, this one has more armor, but this one gives me more damage. I need this to be able to survive versus this one. And that's just every other rare piece of gear that I pick up. I was like, oh, how important is this to me right now? I felt very empowered by and like I was making decisions a lot of the time. And if I was playing hardcore, literally I would stop and pick up every piece of gear and read and go like, okay, which one of these numbers is higher than the again, not chilling. This is legit. I love picking up every single piece of rare gear and going, I might have found a better piece of gear. And I hope when people get their hands on the game, they can see that and understand how it's not just like green arrows go up. Because if you just pick green arrows go up, you're going to have a bunch of plus to skill ranks that you don't need and a bunch of stats that are going to end up getting you killed. So I just, sorry to segue so hard onto it, but it's like,
No, I think it's super interesting. And so like one piggyback question, if we're going to talk hardcore just briefly, um, well, no, I'm going to go two questions because now I'm like, oh my God. One, could you play hardcore in the beta? And then what is the death penalty in Diablo 4? Neinball,
So
could you play hardcore?
the only death penalty that we saw with what we were able to play is it broke your gear.
Okay.
And you spawn at certain locations. So there is kind of like checkpoints that you would respawn at. So sometimes you could end up pretty far away from your corpse. Not well. I guess you didn't have a corpse that you dropped. All your gear came back with you, but it could take you a while to walk back to the part where wherever it was that you were trying to accomplish. And some of the story quests also reset your progress if you died. I remember there was one part in the story I'm having to take a uh like this statue, from a couple of holy shrines. And if you died during it, like you kind of, I believe I had to go back and pick up the relic from the last shrine that I was at. It didn't like I didn't keep it with me, so um that caused a little back and forth, but otherwise there wasn't a lot.
For a little more specific, you could create a hardcore character. I did do that because your progress is saved differently between hardcore and normal. For people who haven't seen it, there's something called like the renown system. It's basically your reputations in your MMORPGs. It's like how many different things have you done in this area? Have you done quests? Have you done dungeons? Have you found altars of Lilith? Have you done strongholds? And it gives you bonuses. If you do all of that on your normal character, you have to do it all again on your hardcore character. It's not like you can do it all easy mode and then get a high level, plus skill character in hardcore. And dying cost you, like Neinball said, it would put you back to a spawn area. So depending on like how far you made it into a dungeon, you might get ported all the way to the back. I remember in D3 you had to do like the walk of shame through greater rifts when you would die before you had the ability to respawn in different locations. You'd have to walk all the way back and lose all that time. So dying is literally a time investment loss, but also you lose 10% incremental. So you can die 10 times, and on your 10th death, at least in like a normal death scenario, we only had like normal, I guess, 1 through 25 death scenarios, you'd have to go repair your gear because you lost your stats from your gear. And that's like a gold cost. So there's a gold cost, a time cost, and then on hardcore you lose your character. So there's that as well.
Which is a time cost.
Which is a very big time cost, yes, absolutely.
Which I'm all for. Okay, thank you for that, and for anybody else out there who is going to go hardcore, you You got a little bit extra. Um, Before we close out Barbarian, any last thoughts around that class? Neinball?
Sorry, no.
That's okay. Uh, Macro?
For me, I felt like there were very obvious skills that probably everybody is going to use, and I felt like there were some skills that felt very lackluster, at least like early on from a generator standpoint. You had a skill called Lunging Strike, which literally moved you towards the opponent, so free mobility, and dealt big damage. It applied bleed, it enabled bleed type builds, and then you also had a skill called Flay. Flay was really powerful because it could apply Vulnerable. Vulnerable is a status effect that says a monster just takes more damage. So if your generator skill applies Vulnerable and then you use a big either ultimate skill or a finisher, or you use your big damage core skill, you do more damage. Those are both great. That being said, I used Bash, which is one of the other generators, for like 12 seconds, and I went, wow, this is, well, ain't great. Not a big fan of this. I don't gain mobility. I don't attack quickly. You know, there's no reason for me to use this one. So I don't think it's all, sugar gumdrops and rainbows. I think that as far as viability of every skill, there are clearly winners, and I would rather there only be options rather than clear winners. The meta should define the winner, not the skill mechanics themselves. Do you know what I mean? Like, there's a difference between us finding out what's the best versus some just being better. And
Especially at the point where nothing's being modified by legendaries, and it's just you're playing the skill based on its own merits.
absolutely, like that. I think we'll touch on it later, but when you get a legendary aspect on your gear, that can drastically change the outcome. And at the very least, before you have those, there's kind of no reason to use some skills. And I would prefer all things be viable and different rather than just having a best winner. That's probably a criticism I could levy against, I guess, every game and everything everywhere. But if we're going to criticize specifically D4, that's currently an issue that I see.
Oh, we're gonna do that later. Just wait. Dun dun dun. Robes up for that. But let's transition. Let's go to the sorcerer or sorceress. Um, I've ranked these in order of the likelihood I am to play them. Barbarian is least likely, then sorcerer second. And rogue out of all of them is the one I feel like I would go towards because we don't have the option of druid or necro. So I'm interested more than a barbarian. Uh, what can you tell me about it? Neinball, you delved into the sorceress realm. The good, the bad, the ugly.
So I actually ended up having a lot more fun with the sorceress than I was expecting to. Just I think a lot of it came down to when you're going through and doing like the story bosses of the dungeons, the stagger mechanic. Just I was playing Frost, and so just being able to have that level of control, when you're going through and playing against them to build the stagger meter. It is of course early game, so you build that stagger meter like really quick in order to like reset mechanics. There was one story boss. It was actually the final story boss, where it would constantly like cover the ground and like waves of like blood, and so you had this like the whole area is like covered in like this dots, and so there's only specific places you can stand. But if you staggered them, everything cleared. And so that was one of those ones that was an interesting mechanic, and that was a difficult fight when I was playing through with my rogue, but it was incredibly easy playing on Sorceress just because of that crowd control aspect. And then also, like on a previous episode, I was talking about how just the combat felt like that you got punished a lot more for making mistakes. Just having the ability to slow or freeze things, and then give yourself a little bit more breathing room, or I don't have to worry about that elite because it's frozen, so I can just wait a tick to get another frozen orb off just to clear some of the minions out of the way before I go through and start focusing it back down. the tools that it had, at least as the Frost build, was something that I had a lot more engagement. I definitely enjoyed it.
So I know we have three elements. We have frost, fire, and lightning, correct? Or is there a fourth one I'm missing? Um,
That's it.
Heart, yeah, heart. You need that one for Captain Planet typically.
um, so eh, was Frost just a clear winner for you, or were did the other elements not stack up? Or did you just like, I've got limited time, Frost feels fun, I'm going to stick with it?
That was pretty much it. Frost felt fun, so I kind of like stuck with that one. I think at the very end, I had respect for like a couple of lightning skills, but I played it for like maybe 30 minutes. But yeah, it
Cool.
was pretty much just Frost the whole way through.
Macro,
See, that's very interesting. So, uh, again, for additional context, I come from a speedrunner background, and the generator skill, although the sorceress is a little bit different. The sorceress regenerates resource over time,
Mm-hmm.
and also has just skills that they use, which is different. So, like typically, like you spend your resource and then you generate your resource. The sorceress just kind of naturally regenerates it, but her starter skill arc lash, it does this small AoE around you, and it hits a couple targets around you. And one of the enhancements that you can use for it is that it gains movement speed when you hit a target, and it lasts for an amount of time and it builds up. And the thing that I found really interesting, especially playing through the prologue, where you kind of had to do this little mini quest that kind of taught you quest progression, and also key NPCs in Kiovashad in the Fractured Peaks where we were. Uh, it was like you would fight some monsters. I would arc lash. I would gain this movement speed buff. As I was going, I would find destructible objects like boxes and crates. And I would use arc lash on them, which would reset my timer on my movement speed buff. So I'm literally running through the prologue faster than other characters could. And because it was a lightning type damage skill, I could prioritize passives in that. Now, that being said, I also only played until like level 10, maybe 15 on the Sorceress. But then from there, I built into it was chain lightning. Now all of a sudden, I have this like mini AOE, and then I had this kind of line shot AOE type skill, and those all felt very good to me. But that being said, what you're talking about, the ability to stagger a boss and to apply CC to monsters, the amount of control you gain over the battlefield, which is, at least coming from D2, is like you kind of don't have that except on very specific. You don't just go to like, oh, I'm crowd controlling this part of the screen. The Sorceress felt like you got to kind of be a maestro. You got to decide when and where you picked battles, when and
Oh yeah.
I'll pop over here, trigger these things, pop over here, trigger these things. Felt very, very satisfying to
Mm-hmm.
be able to play in that way, in a very methodical way, which I assume you got a lot more of playing Frost, because I only played lightning skills because got to go fast, gotta
Yeah.
gotta
Well, I mean,
zoom in.
I did, like every sorceress that existed, I did of course spec into teleport.
Well,
Which
yeah,
is actually a lightning skill that does damage. So you can actually like teleport on top of something and like just destroy a wall, or do a little bit of damage, like finish off some like weak enemies, or yada yada. But yeah, no, it was definitely one of those, like, just especially once you got going, it's like, drop a blizzard, hit a frozen orb, everything has like a massive chill effect on them. Teleport away for a little bit more distance. Drop a couple more frozen orbs, and then just go through and use the little frostbolt while you wait for your arcane energy, to go through and regenerate. And I think it also had like attacks. There was a later passive, I think, that it was that when you attacked a chilled or frozen enemy, you also regained arcane power. So it did have a little bit of that ability to regenerate. That you're not just sitting there waiting on a timer. That you had the ability that as you continue to press further with your ice skills, it would refund your mana to keep going, and kind of create a nice like little loop. Because without that, yeah, like you were saying, the sorceress generators did not. They're the basic skills, I think, is the keyword that was attached to them. They didn't generate resource. You just had to wait for it until you got much further down into the tree.
if I could step into the shoes of the host for a hot second, how do you like teleport as a mobility utility skill? Kind of that differentiator there, as opposed to just hold down right click and teleport until I'm where I want to be. Because I like what they have done with teleport and how they have
Yeah.
made teleport a skill in D4.
I definitely can appreciate, as you know, looking at it from like the developer's point of view, I definitely appreciated a lot more of using it to reposition myself like in a battle, in order to either like gain distance or close distance, if I needed to chase something like a treasure goblin or what have you. Just that ability then combined with, I was already building a ton of crowd control, to just give myself a little bit of breathing room for that next second that I needed to drop off a frozen orb. And the frozen orb build that I was doing was actually like bonus damage on the explosion. So if an enemy was right up next to me, I wouldn't deal as much damage. I needed to land the explosion on top of them, and so teleporting away gives me just like the perfect distance to then shoot it and get the bonus damage out of it. So it it felt like, it's like, oh, this clicks, this feels good, this is a great experience. Um, of course, with the side effect of it has a relatively, I guess I want to say it's a short cooldown, but if you're trying to use it as a movement skill, it's a very long cooldown.
Yes.
Yeah. But its ability and utility to use to just position around the battlefield felt good. And also going back to, when you make mistakes in this game, you're really punished for it. If you used it without like taking into consideration some things, like you backed yourself into a corner, or you accidentally teleported onto one of the pentagrams to get feared, you felt extra bad about it. But at the same time, you also realized that was my own fault, for that. So
Yeah, you're immediately
yeah,
like, ooh, I messed up real bad. Well,
yeah,
I guess I'm running in this direction for 8 seconds. Dude,
yeah.
monsters in the game are they're disrespectful. Vampiric, the cold
Yes.
enchant, Vampiric, the cold enchanted one, the
Hmm.
one that put down the pentagrams that feared you. So now you're just kind of like spamming your mobility and
Hmm.
healing vial hotkeys, waiting for you to gain access to your character. Disrespectful.
So I was telling Xanth the Nerd Words on the previous episode about like how the crowd control from the enemies in this game is just like absolutely next level. Like, it's brutal. But you always feel as if it was your fault. It was one of those ones where it's different from like crowd control in other games, where it's like, oh, you just got feared. Tough luck. Where it's like there's enough. It's always telegraphed very well, and it's like one of those ones where it's like, I've put myself into a position where I've gotten crowd control because I wasn't managing my scenario properly. But there were some situations like the vampires, where the ghouls, where you just have 40 ghouls just appear off the screen and surround you, and
Dude,
you can't get out of the frozen,
they
and
are
then you get
too
frozen, you can't
much.
do anything for 2 seconds. So yeah, it was definitely my
It
one of my
looks
worst
cool.
scenarios. Oh yeah, one of my
It
worst
looks it
scenarios is
looks cool as hell though. It looks cool.
fro-
Like the
frozen
frozen
and
part, you're like
yep.
very good, but yeah, no,
I
it's challenging.
Yeah,
In
the
in terms
frozen
of
enchanted ice clan Khazra, because their basic attack already chills you, and it
Yep.
makes it harder to get out of the frozen orb. And it's just like, it was great. It was fun. I died. It
Yes,
was a
which
great
is
experience. Yeah.
again, like I know people are gonna die and get very upset about it. But like you said, it's like, ooh, I messed up. I could have literally have played that better or different, or I need to go have a Rocky montage or something and go train somewhere. I just need better gear because like it's rough, dude. It's like a challenging game. Sorry, that was a
which
lot, but
I think people again will be excited to hear. Um, is there any way to mitigate, this crowd control that you guys are talking about with a fear or with being frozen? In Path of Exile, you have potions that you can spam for, freeze immunity, for bleed immunity, so on and so forth. Um, is there anything akin to that, or is there skills or items that or stats that you boost to decrease
so
CC?
there is the status unstoppable. There are skills that grant unstoppable. Unstoppable means you can't be crowd controlled for however long the skill lasts. You get to say nope, I didn't want to do that. They're typically pretty long cooldowns. I'll have to remember the exact skill for the Barbarian. I think it was a shout that gave you unstoppable. But they're like in Diablo 3, there's a lot of like cheat death mechanics and a lot of nobody can touch me while I have this debuff up or this buff up. In D4, at the very least from what we saw, or at least from what I played, if I go, I'm going to use this skill right now to be unstoppable, I better have a plan for the next 25 seconds. I better know what I'm doing for the next minute of battle, because that monster's going to keep applying chill, like you said, the Khazra shamans, just like their base attack slows you down until you're eventually frozen. And if you use your unstoppable, and then you come out of unstoppable and a couple of them hit their ability on you, now you're in the way of the elite monster's affix that throws up this like big chill effect that you have to dodge, or the fear effect like we talked about, and then you can get feared into an ice blast. Like, it's not just hit unstoppable and then murder everything. It's hit unstoppable and figure out where I'm going to be 30 seconds from now, so that I don't need to use my unstoppable ability again. From the Barbarian at the very least, I know the Rogue has I think I would assume every class has unstoppable, because I think the Rogue definitely had unstoppable from what I saw. Barbarian has unstoppable, and it's kind of funny because mobility is a challenge. Like I said, you're not just teleporting the whole time, right? I was using my evade ability for mobility, because you move faster while you're evading, but then evade has the cooldown. I was using my Barbarian shouts for mobility because they give you movement speed, but they also buff you. But I want to get to where I'm going faster. So if they ran out before a fight started, I was kind of up a creek without a paddle. So I don't know. I don't know if this is a good thing or a bad thing. It's definitely a challenging thing, where if you're trying to get somewhere fast, you're probably going to use skills that you might need to actually survive the fight that you're running to. I can only mostly talk for the Barbarian, but it, yes, they exist, and they are a very finite resource, and you got to be smart when you use them.
Good to know. So I think we've had some great tangents on each class, by the way. I like getting into CC, and I feel like I'm learning new stuff every single time. So that is awesome. Last thoughts on the Sorcerer.
She's cool, man. Does cool lightning stuff.
Pun intended.
Does cool ice stuff.
I'm pretty sure she has fire skills too. I don't know. I literally didn't.
Maybe.
Yeah, we
There's
did
a
not talk
Hydra in
about
the
fire,
game, I
but
think.
yeah.
Something like that, yeah.
Hydra looks cool.
Yeah.
Hydra looks stupid. Like, it looks very good in this game. I got to give them obviously credit where credit's due. First off, all the skills look very good. Like, even, like the basic skills are kind of whatever, but once you get into your core skills, and then you're kind of like you're stronger and ultimate abilities and stuff like that, every particle effect looks amazing. Hydra is definitely top tier, super cool looking. I'm excited for people to get their hands on that, because it was definitely a beautiful looking skill. I didn't use it too much, but looked cool.
And I think that's all it takes. All right, so we got one more class to talk about, and that is the Rogue, right? This melee ranged hybrid, that has not been in a Diablo game. I mean, that has, but a Rogue has not been in a Diablo game since D1. Um, and that was the first class I ever killed Diablo with. So I am kind of excited to return to,
Damn.
yeah.
You weren't a warrior? You didn't just
Mm-mm.
strong arm your way through all the succubi, just a melee, just bam, bam. No, all right, that's who does.
I 26 years ago, right? I was, still coming off of like old school Nintendo 64 energy, and I wanted to shoot things with a bow. I thought that was cool. Um, so that's what I leaned in on. Uh, so I'm excited to
So
hear what you guys can tell me about Rogue.
so kind of similar to the Sorceress. Again, I'm just going to jump in really quickly because I think Neinball is about to go off for a while. The Rogue was very cool. I didn't get a lot of time on the Rogue. What I liked about the Rogue is that it's distinctly different from the Diablo 1 Rogue. You can do that very range play style, but they gave her a lot of things that are actually in the grander scope of fantasy rogue like. You have traps, you have poison, you have melee abilities. You kind of have that World of Warcraft rogue aesthetic where you kind of have these short burst AoE effects as well. I think they've done a really good job of evolving the rogue from what you saw in Diablo 1 because like you just said, we haven't seen an evolution of her since Diablo 1. So she kind of needed an upgrade to her kit. She can't just be, shooting the butcher from max range with whatever bow you managed to pick up on your way down. I didn't play a ton. I like what I saw, and I like the idea of being a poison rogue, but that's kind of all I got. So please illuminate the people.
I played a poison rogue.
See,
Yeah,
it sounds sick.
no, that was definitely, it was like one of those, that was just like one of those, again, we'll use the word, the class aesthetic that I was drawn to, like the using the poisons and all other types of stuff. I was ranged, because I prefer ranged over melee. I didn't play like any of the melee skills at all. But I went, and again, I was, I played the rogue first, and it almost feels as if I was trying to mimic what I was doing on the sorceress, even though it came before, because I was using caltrops. I was using the poison trap with a slow component, just so that way I could like throw down a poison trap, get them in there, use the caltrops to slow them, so they had to stay in because it did massive damage and such. And for the most part, it worked. Like when you'd have like a big packs of like the warrior Khosrow with an elite or something like that. Like I just drop down the poison trap, throw the caltrops. They all get slowed. They slowly are moving through the poison trap, and then they all fall over dead except for the elite, which I then just bow down real quick. It was a lot of fun. The only trouble that I had was the end story boss, because the only like CC that I had was the caltrops, and it didn't apply a lot of stagger while having a long cooldown. So its stagger bar would almost like just like not move at all. So I had no way of like clearing the blood waves. And I was obviously under geared for that fight when I did it. So that one took me. I think it like took me like 2 tries, but otherwise it was pretty much smooth sailing. And then I went and did like the class unlocking the class mechanic. And the combo points made it so that way your generator felt even better. Because your generator you're already using in order to try and build up like a little bit more focus. But then the basic skill, then creating the combo points before you went through and you used your core skill, like I was using Barrage, to just increase its damage by a lot, felt better. So that way you're actually like building up these combos. You'd put the poison imbue, or you'd use a couple of your generators. You build up your max combo points. You do the poison imbue. You would drop a barrage. You would drop a poison trap to then reset like the poison imbue to do more skills and such. And so it felt like it had like kind of like this whole convoluted kind of like dance that you were playing the entire time, where you had to keep hitting these buttons in a certain repetition in order to keep going. But if you were doing it felt like you were just nonstop clearing everything. And then what was it? The caltrops. I ended up much like you were saying before, as a movement skill, because it would you don't just drop the caltrops for the slow. You pop back a little bit, and so I would just be running backwards as I drop.
Yeah, drop them behind you.
Yeah, so that way I would just shoot forward, as I'm walking around the world map and such.
That has big like portal energy right there. Just kind of like using like little kinetic boosts to get through.
Yeah, yeah, just like it was, but it was fun. It felt like the whole system was great. I kind of wish I had gone back and done the class quest before had done the last story quest, because I think if I actually had combo points, it would have gone a lot easier. But it was definitely one of those ones where it felt like I got the experience of the rogue that okay, this is like really good at just like mowing down like waves of mobs, and I just like kind of like channel them into the poison trap, and then everything just falls over and dies. The dungeon bosses, were generally like either like slow or you could predict their movements, and so you could just lure them onto the poison trap. But like that one story boss just refused to stay on it. It was floating around the whole stage the entire time, and that one just became really difficult. I was like, okay, maybe I do actually have to put a little bit of thought into what I'm doing with my build to play different types of bosses. If this is one of those things that continues, on to the rest of the game, I might have to like, oh, this dungeon has this boss, or maybe this act, that I'm going through and beating has like this boss or this mechanic. Maybe I've got to rethink what skills I'm using, or what legendaries come with.
Can I paint that a little bit, because I think well, you and I, Neinball, like we know what we're talking about, and people who've seen some gameplay and seen some press roll may not understand. In Diablo 4, a boss, so like the boss at the end of a dungeon, is what I think we're talking about when we're always talking about bosses, have a stagger meter. So if you've played Sekiro, one of the FromSoft games, this is kind of their poise. You basically have a boss can't be crowd controlled, right? You can't stun a boss, you can't freeze a boss or anything like that, but you can build up stagger. And when you hit 100% stagger, the boss drops, they stop doing their attack, it will interrupt anything that they did, and I believe you also do like a significant larger amount of damage during this point. I think they become vulnerable during stagger.
I think during the entirety of the stagger they're vulnerable.
They're vulnerable. So while they're vulnerable, they take additional damage. So you could have a build that's real good at killing stuff, that's real good at mobility, but it doesn't really apply stagger. So when you get to a boss, all of a sudden you're like, oh, this boss is, they have these different phases. I think every boss had a phase. It's like at 75% they do this, at 50% they do this, at 25% they do this. Very World of Warcraft, very typical MMO stuff. And it goes, oh, maybe I build up my stagger. So when they hit that 50% point where they would normally spawn some ads or do this big AoE attack, I'll interrupt them and I'll drop them down below 50%. So we can ignore that phase. You can have a build that's real good at killing monsters and real bad at staggering bosses. And like you were just saying, oh, my rogue will clear open world content as I'm running through. I'll destroy everything. I'll drop some traps and ba 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 ba. I get to the boss, and the boss is like, "Hey, how's it going? You can't stun me, so what are we doing here?" And they'll just kill you.
Yeah.
And I, me personally, I like that. I like having to rethink my build. I was thinking of ways where like maybe I respec into this skill before I go to this dungeon boss. Literally, maybe I pull this point out and I put it into here. So when I walk into this dungeon boss, I'm using a different skill than I use for the whole dungeon. Depending on how much the gold cost is, like that might be the meta, but also that's, to me, that's incredibly cool. I really, really like how just because you have a really strong build that does one thing, it doesn't necessarily do another thing. And the rogue is kind of like the poster child of versatility, because you have so many different types of skills that do so many different types of things. And I think one of the parts where I was talking about earlier, where I was struggling with that stronghold, was I kind of couldn't apply CC. So I really couldn't control the world around me. So I was dying a lot. But I had a really good DPS build if it was a single target. I'd wreck a single target. I would destroy him. I'd send him back home with bad grades on his report card. But like, but I couldn't do anything against like a big AoE area. I don't know. That's just something that maybe you all have talked about it before, but I haven't necessarily seen a lot of people really going into that aspect of the game, which is like, you can't just, it's not just you have 6 skills and they're going to do everything you need them to do.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you need to think a bit more when you walk into this dungeon that has this type of boss and this type of objective. maybe you need different stuff, different gear, different things. Maybe you keep some stuff in your inventory and you swap out your gear to do different stuff. Like
Do
it
you
is like
do you think that will
that.
promote more party play then? Where you want somebody who can specialize more in like just doing heavy damage while also like, hey, you know what? I'm gonna build or I'll spec into doing to specializing in staggering bosses. So like I'll join your party. Like, did you guys party play at all during the press beta? Like, did it feel okay?
I I did some party play, Neinball. I don't know if you did any party play.
I did not. So by all means, take it from here.
So I guess again, just kind of to touch on that, did you feel like you needed to party play? Like, did you do world boss stuff? Like, did you go and fight a world boss?
No, I did not do the world boss.
Did you ever walk into anything that wasn't because the world boss is inherently it's not even necessarily party play, it's just multiple player party, like everybody in your instance of the world can go fight that world
Kind of
boss.
just yeah, they can all just kind of like gang up, and you'll see the other people fighting, not
did
necessarily.
you did you do any content where you're like, damn, I wish I was in a party right now, or did you feel like you could strong arm it if you needed to?
Yeah, I didn't really feel as if there was ever any point where I felt I needed to be in a party. Even when I like was struggling with that, that act in boss, it it wasn't as bad. Like I only died a couple of times. It wasn't as bad that I felt like I need someone to come in and save me type thing.
Because to I guess to stave off the complaints or questions in the future, I see a lot of people talking about I want to be able to play this game solo versus I want to be able to play this game in a group. Me personally, I I come from an MMO background. Like obviously I played Diablo 2, but I was playing EverQuest the majority of my early life and into my teenager years, where yeah, you can solo a lot of stuff if you want to actually get good stuff, so you have to group up. And while you may not be social, there was kind of etiquette to partying. I guess this is getting a little bit too meta, but in Diablo 4, while I didn't necessarily feel like I ever had to party up, like except for the world boss, where again everybody's just kind of fighting anyways. And I have AoE buffs. As the Barbarian, I had multiple shouts that would buff other people. So even if I don't talk to these people, literally just getting them into my group just so that they receive my buff when I shout helped us kill the world boss faster. I didn't need to. If you're introverted or you have an aversion to that, you don't have to click that button. Absolutely not. It's not aggressive like in Diablo Immortal where you literally have to have a group to go do stuff, at least from what we saw, right? Like level 1 through 25, I did the whole story. I did every dungeon. I did every outdoor event. Never had to party. It never like gave me a screen that said, "Do you want to party with local players?" Boop 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 boop. Which again, I personally like. I know a lot of people don't like that, but in group play, I can definitely see a world where you have the I'm a full stagger build. I'm not going to do anything this whole dungeon. I guess maybe I'll do some CC,
Mhm.
but when we get to that boss, homie, you better believe they're going to be on downtime for 100% of their life bar. And I like that's very exciting to me. The idea that, like in Diablo 3, where you have the DPS, you have the puller, you have the Z DPS barb, you have the people who do pixel pulls, you have the people who are managing scouting for shrines, et cetera, like very good group play mechanics. I, at the very least, didn't need anybody to play the whole story or unlock any of my Codex of Power abilities or get any of the materials that I need for upgrading stuff. I didn't need to talk to anybody in chat to go do a world boss. I just showed up and I attacked them until we got our shimmering shard, prismatic shard, whatever the thing that lets you socket an item. I think it's shimmering something. I forget the name of it now, but uh, I like that the challenges that I faced would probably have been easier if I had a group where we made those types of decisions between are you the DPS, are you the crowd controller, are you the scout movement person, whatever that looks like in this game, etc.
We did get a question since you did do some group play. They were interested in the voice chat. Is it well? How does it function? Did you use a voice chat built-in game to party play, or did you just use outside tools?
Uh, is there voice chat in Diablo 4?
If there is, I never noticed.
I
I didn't group
well,
play, so I don't know.
I never heard anybody talk to me. And quite literally, I never looked to see if there was voice chat. I guess I also have a background in MOBAs and League of Legends. I never willingly walk into a voice chat if I can avoid it.
Yeah.
Uh, that's coming from a streamer background. That's coming from playing Call of Duty back on PlayStation Network and other games on Xbox. I kind of don't want to hear people on voice chat, so I never clicked any buttons. Sorry. I also saw that question. I saw the question on Twitter and I literally went, was there a voice chat in Diablo? I actually don't know if there was voice chat in Diablo 4.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sorry, I never clicked it. Trade chat was there. You can spam Wind Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker if you want to, I guess.
Did you say Wind Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker?
Oh, I'm sorry. We cut out for a second there. I'm pretty sure somebody said Wind Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker. I didn't know if you heard that or...
I'm pretty sure that somebody said Wind Fury, Blessed Blade of the Windseeker.
Shout outs to memes that I'm positive died roughly 15 years ago. But just, hey, back in the day, we were making jokes too, all right? It was a good game.
The podcast has devolved into Baron's chat at this point.
Yeah. Well, I was an Alliance player, so it was Ironforge chat. I'm sorry. I know. I'm sorry. Gnomes had the best passive for warlocks at the time, other than orcs, but summons weren't good back then. Look, we can have a whole podcast about World of Warcraft Classic, but for right now, we're talking about Diablo 4.
That's a whole new conversation that I'm not.
Yeah, sorry, Twitter.
For.
I never touched it. To very quickly talk on communication, there were multiple channels that you could tab through. So like party, trade, I think like shout range, meaning like immediate area conversations. Obviously there are going to be clans in the game, so there's a clan chat. I can only assume, but I did not use voice chat. I think if they do implement it, it's probably going to be pretty heavily regulated, and I think ideally people are going to be using VoIP or Discord in general to get into communities, either via Reddit or via Discord channels or streamer communities, and then talking in those types of voice chats, where I think you'll probably have higher quality communication if it is going to occur over voice. But I did not click those buttons in game. I'm sorry.
You don't need to apologize to me. I think it's okay. I feel like you probably have a pretty good point of jumping in to general voice chat might be dangerous. Though in the random press beta, who knows who you could have ended up playing with?
Yeah, Crip could have been in there. Shout outs to Crip, my boy. One day he'll know that I exist. And
I actually interviewed Crip way back in the day. Before he like really took off. He was still pretty big. So that was, I'll introduce you, right? Because clearly I've got
hey,
that
thanks.
pulse.
Yeah, I do it. So in my recent niche of participating in this fandom and in this genre and here, I do intend on going to BlizzCon. And I'm a very aggressive extrovert, so I do intend on walking up as if most people should already know me and hoping that generally works. When I go to PAX East. So I just kind of walk in like, hey, how's it going? We probably are friends, right? I'm confident.
I think that's most of it just showing up, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
I keep asking people to show up and you guys do. Like I just message you, you're like, hey, you guys want to talk about Diablo? And like you just keep showing up. So persistence, guys. Persistence is all you need to make it. Just ask. Like how do we get Jay Wilson on the show? We just asked. Like why aren't more people asking? I don't know. Uh, so we were at Rogue. It's where we were.
If
Um,
you say so.
yeah, a little. We're being coy here. Any last thoughts on the Rogue before we go into your hot takes?
No, I
Uh,
don't.
I,
I don't really. I don't have anything
yeah,
else.
please go ahead. Yeah, I think they look cool as hell. I
Yeah.
think I like the class identity of them having bow crossbow. I think that's pretty cool. Obviously we can't speak to necromancer and druid. I assume there isn't a druid out there summon a raven and shooting a crossbow. I'm just gonna go ahead and assume. But I think the only thing I actually wanted to specifically ask you about Neinball, just because like again I didn't get to pilot it. How were the ultimates on the rogue? How do they feel? Not the ultimate passives, because we didn't get enough points to get down to there, but the ultimate skills themselves. Because I think there's there's like three actual skills, right?
I did not get high enough level on the rogue to unlock it.
Oh no.
Yeah.
Well, they have Death Trap, which just sounds metal as all hell. Like if I can, they have Death Trap, Rain of Arrows, and Shadow Clone, which all sound like they're kind of taking the assassin from D2 and putting them into the rogue, and which makes well it doesn't story wise make sense because the assassin is like a very specific mage hunting cult, but mechanically it makes a lot of sense, and I really like that. So I was hoping to kind of pick your brain on that.
Um,
Sorry, listeners, I kind of debated you there, but the ultimates look cool as hell.
Nightball,
I am
you.
I'm proud to disappoint you a second time on this show.
Nightball, you talked about combo points, and like the last when I think about combo points, I think of the assassin in D2, right? Um, and those points were, yeah, and it's been a long time since I played an assassin, but a pain in the ass from my memory to like notice and like manage. Um, how did those combo points for Rogue feel?
It's actually it's part of the UI. It's right above your skill menu that you see the combo points appear. So it's not like World of Warcraft where you build combo points on an individual mob. You're just building your combo points by using your skills. And then when you unleash something, just like the assassin, in D2, you just spend all of them. But you'll see the little pips build up on your screen.
Okay, yeah,
So
that's I
it's
was
pretty much there, like right in the middle.
I meant to ask that when you're talking about it, but I just want to clear that up because you know, I remember combo points, like I said, being very clunky. To hear them not have that kind of system makes me more excited for the Rogue, where it's
You
like,
don't want to count the little orbs spinning around your character.
no,
You don't want to be a Christmas tree. The moment that you said that, Nightball, it made me realize how terrible combo points have been in Blizzard's history. Like, obviously, D2 is infamous for how unmanageable and unusable they've been. But also, in World of Warcraft, it was like per monster, right? So you'd
Yeah,
have to like once you got to the
and
boss, it was whatever. But like,
it,
still,
it,
yeah.
it, it was also like a pain because what is it? I think I don't even know. I'm not familiar with current World of Warcraft, but it used to be if you tab mobs, you'd lose all of your combo points.
Yeah,
So yeah, if
absolutely.
if you if you if you'd build like a couple, you'd have to use them before you tabbed over to something else. I think that there was
Which
like
is,
talents or something that you could use to like keep combo points or transfer them or something. I don't remember. And again, like
yeah, huh.
I haven't played WoW in a while.
Hey, they
I
got it
still
right.
I bought Dragonflight and I have not. I got to the boat and stopped playing.
Damn. I
Yeah.
was thinking about picking up Dragon. So I haven't played World of Warcraft since Legion, and I never played uh the classic. But I was like, Dragonflight kind of looks cool. I don't think I have enough time in my life to play World of Warcraft right now.
All of my friends that went over to 14 from Shadowlands have come back and are loving. So obviously
Oh, okay.
they've done a lot of
Okay.
good things in Dragonflight. I've had different priorities and things that have been taking precedent.
Well, you don't have to play World of Warcraft, guys. I'm just saying, you don't have to. But I'm not even gonna lie, I was tempted to. But I'm not. I'm not. I have much like you, Number. I have a few things going on where I can't give an MMO my time. Just that would be bad. Okay, there's a list. Many people have lists. They were in the same beta as you, and they've come to a conclusion that there's a lot of things to hate about the game. Um, so, tell me why I'm supposed to hate it.
Neinball, if you could take this, because I think my hot take is going to take a hot second to explain.
Oh no, I think I say this. I already know what's coming. But yeah, it's it's definitely one of those ones where it's interesting seeing a lot of people go through and like put um some of those thoughts out there. Obviously negativity sells. On the internet and such. And if you've ever browsed our Diablo or any of the Diablo subreddits, the par for the course is hating this franchise for whatever reason, even though it's the only game that you ever play. You hate everything about it all the time.
Yeah, I love hating all of it and giving it about 2,000 hours per year played, which is that sounds like Stockholm to me. I don't know.
Yeah, it's very interesting. But some people have gone through, and of course they opened with the X number of things that I hate about Diablo, and then followed up with the X things that I love about Diablo 4. But it's negativity always gets the clicks. That's what's out there. But for me, my opinion is it's just we only got to level 25. We got one act into the game. It really wasn't enough to like really give a deterministic feeling about what's going to be good and what's going to be bad until we are able to get our hands on the full product. And
So
even then, that's just
would that be a reason why I should hate it?
yes, that's a reason why you should hate Diablo 4 because you can't play it yet.
Bingo.
Yeah.
I'm sold
I
on
mean,
hatred.
it is probably my biggest complaint about going through and having played Diablo 4 is that it's really the only thing that I want to play right now. I look at all the other games and it's just kind of like, yeah, it's fun.
Well,
So if
June's coming up soon.
It's new June. Yeah, it's almost here, right? Yeah.
so
Uh,
I that to me feels like a valid complaint, and honestly, that to me that sounds actually really cool. It sounds shitty, right? Like that's a crappy feeling of like, oh, I want to play something, but I can't because it doesn't like exist yet. But you've had a taste of it, right? Uh, but to know that there's a lot of really good games out right now, right? There's a lot of really cool things that you could be entertaining yourself with, but your experience with Diablo has had enough of a pull that that isn't enticing. That's pretty cool, right? Lots of really good games right now. So if that's not wetting your whistle because Diablo 4 has ruined it for you, I'm okay with that. So
All right, everybody,
buckle
batten
up.
down the
just
buckle up,
strap in.
put the hood up. Also, I just want to say I'm very jealous. Xanth looks good with the hood up and the hood down. That is actually very difficult to accomplish, and I'm just very jealous of that. Just good bald head for with the hood down, appropriate cultist. You look like you're gonna force to feed me the poison and sacrifice me. Hood up, you look like you've already sacrificed me. It's unfair. No, but
It's
buckle up.
it's the
Here's
beard.
my
It's
hot
the beard.
take. Here's my hot take before I fanboy, just as a little spoiler, as per what Neinball was alluding to. The game isn't an MMO enough. Oh,
Ooh,
I'm
ooh,
sorry.
spicy.
Yeah, no. I didn't tell anybody beforehand that I was going to be talking about this because I think I'm like one of 6 people who have this opinion. The game isn't MMO enough. Now, what you're seeing a lot on Reddit, like we talked about, where just real quick, just to talk to Reddit, hey, how's it going? Are you all okay? Is everything okay over there? Because
The
y'all
answer
are
is obviously
wild.
no.
I, I try to put in like a lot of time and effort into Reddit. Shout outs to the people who notice it. Y'all are wild over there, and I hope you're okay. The game isn't MMO enough. And what do I mean by that? Welcome to my TED Talk. When I say I come from playing EverQuest, I don't mean like, ooh, my dad had EverQuest and I played a little bit as a kid. I mean, me and my dad built our own computers when I was 8 years old. We built our own computers. I helped him be able to navigate MS-DOS without having a mouse, and then eventually like getting into the GUI for Windows back in the day. We were playing EverQuest together. I've been playing MMOs since a little bit after I could read. I love them. They're easily my favorite genre of games. And what a lot of people think they're throwing around as a criticism is, oh, but they made Diablo MMO. They're trying to make it an MMO. Where's my classic single player Diablo game? And I hear that. And I don't think that you're invalid for having that opinion. I would love for this game to go even more MMO. We have the renown system, which is very cool. You accomplish tasks which take time. When you play the game for an amount of time, you get this many rewards. You get this many skill points, gold, eventually Paragon points, although we obviously couldn't touch that. But at least in the Fractured Peaks, if you did this many things, you would get this many rewards. I want Kyovashad to allow me to gamble for less obols because I've built up their reputation enough. I want, whenever we get into an arena area, whatever that looks like, because they're pretty obvious about PvP, getting you like cosmetics and stuff. That's what they've talked about. I want to unlock secret merchants at the PvP arena because I did this many kills or whatever. I want to run a dungeon where there are 10, 20, 30, 40 people involved. I want to fight a world boss where I need to get a group of people together who know what they're doing and walk in, and it takes us a month to beat it, but we did it and we get whatever the reward is. Now, this is pretty antithetical to the Diablo that we know and love. And I get that. I'm not going to argue against that. But I want that option. It doesn't need to get me the best gear in the game, because I agree. I think that Diablo's core is in your ability to beat it by yourself, and I never want to erase that. But it's the reason why Diablo has been a single player game for so long is because the Diablo franchise has done such a terrible job of enabling multiplayer. Like it's not by design, it's by failure, in my opinion. Diablo 2, the way to get the best loot, the best experience, and the best stuff is to play with multiple people. But other people get to pick up your loot. So you never want to play with other people. So you play in single player games, so you get worse loot and you get less experience. The Diablo 3, the best way to play Diablo 3 is in a group where you have these specialized characters who do this thing versus this thing and blah, blah, blah. So you're not just infinitely grinding greater rifts looking for particular pylons or whatever. They're called pylons? What are they called?
Pylons. Yep.
Pylons. It's like, this rift wasn't this map layout with this pylon reset because I won't be able to clear this Greater Rift 150 with this setup, right? Diablo is like just waiting for good multiplayer. And if it dipped more into MMO, I think we could get there and enjoy the things that come along with good MMOs. And that's what I want. That's my hot take. It's not MMO enough from what I saw.
And it's funny that you go through and you mention those things because there's one of the most common complaints is that Blizzard doesn't know what they're doing with the Diablo franchise. Blizzard North would have made a better game, yada yada and such. Well, Blizzard North's version of Diablo 3 wasn't.
Yep.
So the original Diablo 3 that they were developing was straight up not an open world game like Diablo 4 is. They were making an MMO, is what they were doing. So it has a more of a core identity to the franchise than a lot of people would think or give it credit for.
The team with Brevik was making a guild hall for Diablo 2, was making a PvP Coliseum for Diablo 2. You can go see it. You can go walk around in it they exist. The textures for what was gonna be there exist. You can look at it. Diablo 2 and what it could have done on BattleNet was leading us towards an MMO. And I get why people don't want that. And that's okay. Again, completely valid. I get it. I think the best Diablo 2 experience that you can have is single player, because I think that multiplayer is garbage. Why do I think that multiplayer is garbage? Because you can't benefit from all of the systems that they put in place for multiplayer because everybody steals your loot. You know, the tryhards are like, well, if you can't click it, then you don't deserve to get, okay, you happened to be next to the monster who dropped the item and had the lowest ping on the server that you were on. Let's stop pretending like you're some kind of master level hacker. We're all using the same frames per second here, okay? We're all at the 105 breakpoint. Sorry, I'm getting real D2 specific, but it's, again, the perception of Diablo 2 as just a single player experience is the symptom of what was possible with the technology and the resources. It is not the intent. And that's what I want from D4. I want an MMO D2. I want to put in 6 hours of gameplay and get 6 hours of loot, 6 hours of progression, 6 hours of satisfaction. The funny part about the Diablo franchise fans is that we're talking about people who just like me, I'm on the younger side. I think the only person who we can all argue is like relevant in the D2 space who's younger than me is BT. BT Neanderthal is 26, 27. He grew up playing Diablo 2 with his dad. I grew up playing Diablo 2 with my dad. I just happen to be 6 years older than him. We're on the younger side of that fandom. And the wild part about it is just this fact of you can play so many hours of Diablo 2 and get nothing. You've done nothing. You can play so many hours of Diablo 3 and do nothing. We got kids now. We got full-time jobs. I have 4 jobs. You know what I mean? I got 4 jobs. I do these podcasts with these amazing people. This is time I'm not playing a video game. I don't have the ability to put 8 hours into a video game anymore and get nothing out of it. I just don't. The roulette slot machine of, ooh, I happen to find a cool rare item doesn't do it anymore for me. I need to get 2 hours of gameplay out of playing a game for 2 hours. And that's what I'm looking forward to in D4. And I think if they were to lean a bit more into MMO and not necessarily be afraid of the, I assume, outrage that will come from the community, the people who want to invest that amount of time can get more out of it. People who want to invest less out of it can still get something out of it. I think there's a middle ground that we could reach. So that's my hot take. Other than that, game's great. Honestly, I think the people saying I hate stuff about Diablo 4 either didn't play it or are just chasing hype. I don't mean to put people on blast, but like, you can have legitimate criticisms about a thing that you've played or a thing that you've actually seen. And I think people need to stop getting upset about hypotheticals that they've never seen and choosing, like, inventing a thing that they're mad about and then holding the game accountable for something that it's not doing. That's it. Those are my hot takes. All right, I'll get off my pedestal.
It's down. All right. There's a lot there. I want to go to just that word hate, right? I think hate is a very strong word, right? And I think it's been misappropriated in most instances to just say like things I'm concerned about or things, like
Yeah.
hate.
That's what it is. It's
The,
concern.
the internet doesn't reward you for having a moderate opinion.
Right.
Yep.
You're absolutely right on that. And I got baited into watching most of them. I've shared. I'm running an ultra marathon in the spring, so I'm running a lot on a treadmill right now. So I'm going and I'm watching videos as I run, and I got baited into several of them. And you're right, it's just like, okay, yeah, but really, it's a concern, but we don't even know.
Hey, and also, I just real quick because I felt a little bit like I threw down a gauntlet. Uh, watch those videos. They might have legitimate concerns. They have to use certain titles because, again, like you just said, that's how clicks work. But these are smart people saying smart things. Definitely go watch them. But like you just said, what we're talking about is concerns. I'm concerned because I want this game to be everything that I want it to be, which is valid as a fan. That's valid. Absolutely. I want everything to be exactly how I want it, if it can be, if that's one of the options. But just take it with a grain of salt. You know what I mean? None of us have actually played the game yet. And we're just saying some really strong stuff about a game we actually haven't played yet. Even people who've gotten access to this press beta, we haven't actually played the game yet. I didn't get to level 50. I don't know what happens when I have all my skill points. You know what I mean? Sorry.
No, no,
Sorry to keep it again.
it's okay.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the hot take. I don't know how to digest it, honestly. I did not expect that. I did not see that coming. Neinball, did you see that coming?
No, but I'm definitely for it.
Uh,
It's like one of those ones where it's just it's like the amount of time that you put in. Like he was mentioning that you're feeling that that your time and commitment has built some sort of progress. Like for your character. Whether it be learning and you could walk away with technically nothing, like when you're going through and smashing your head against like a really difficult boss, um but you progressed like 10%, on the boss or something like that. You've pushed it to a different stage. That feels like a form of progression for you, even if you didn't get any new gear. You're already max level, since this doesn't have a infinite paragon system or anything like that, but it feels good. I think the thing that we're looking for is challenges and things that are challenging. And MMOs are one of the games that actually do that like the best, because whenever you go through, even like the highest level of play, Greater Rift 150s, or the high end mapping and Path of Exile and all other types of stuff, it's not like a big challenge. You eventually will get all of your gear, and it becomes methodical, planned out, easy, and you're just doing it repetitively in order to get gear. But it never has something. I've never been challenged in an ARPG the way that I've been challenged, pushing mythics in World of Warcraft, or when I was doing mythic raids or mythic plus dungeons and such. That is just a completely different level of experience of when you're going through and you're playing your character, and it's something that the ARPGs could I could see doing in an ARPG. No one's figured it out yet.
This is what
well,
happens when you put three heads into a call when you start talking about RPGs.
Yeah.
But it harkens to, like I said, like I come from D&D. I played Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I got a single fighter up to level 16. Level 15, you unlock the ability to be a knight. That's how it used to work. And then my knight died, and that was a year and a half of us playing together. I've been chasing that ever since, and MMOs have been the best place for me to accomplish that challenge in an incremental progress way. And just to touch on a little bit, because I don't think I was clear enough. A lot of people have been worrying about itemization, et cetera, et cetera. When I said I picked up every rare item and looked at it to see if it was better, I assume that carries through to the end game. I'm going to be picking up every rare, every legendary, and ultimately every unique item and be like, is this a better item? What that means is if I play for an hour, I get an hour's worth of rare, legendary, and unique items that I go, is this one better? Did I do a progress today? Is this progression? And then you know what I mean? It's not like, oh, I don't need that set item, or I don't need that unique item, or I don't need to pick up that resource because I'm not crafting anymore.
Yeah.
I like that it's like, this thing I just picked up might be better because everything scales with your level. So literally all the items you find every time you level up should theoretically be better than what you had before. Even that level, not even just like the challenge aspect, but just literally, I picked up this many items, I got this many numbers higher, I did a progression, good job. Now I got to go feed my kid. Now I got to go walk my dog. Now I got to get back to work, or whatever it is. Like, we're kind of okay with the fact that like you can apparently play a game for 10 hours and not accomplish anything, and I'm just not okay with that anymore.
No.
And I like what that could mean in Diablo 4.
As a hardcore player, I will easily play for 10 hours and not accomplish anything because I'm gonna die. I'm more okay with it than most, but I
But every
absolutely
time
get
that you
that.
die, it just gives you more to accomplish.
That's true. And I will say, like,
There
as
you
a
go.
hardcore player, too, like the renown system and those MMO elements that are built in carrying over is exciting. To know that, like, because I was really, successful in the Fractured Peaks, right? With that first character who got wiped out by the ice Khazra, right? Uh, I can start a little bit ahead because I've earned those points. So it doesn't feel as bad of a sting, and I haven't lost as much because I still at least have that. Um, I'm all for that. I don't think that's a bad thing at all. Um, but if you want to disagree, feel free to sign off in the comments, as I would expect you to do so. Um, no, we're all level-headed here. It's going to be totally fine. It's going to be fine.
No, it's everybody agrees. No, but sincerely, also make your voice heard, because here's the thing. 3 people here aren't gonna create what the perfect game is, and we're not gonna be the only voices that have opinions. And I think if you're willing to like compose your thoughts a little bit more, maybe not just like type in all caps, maybe not just scream like D4 bad, just D3 keck W. Uh, if people actually hear you, and there's a value in actually fully conceiving of your thoughts and letting people know, because all of our voices amplifying thoughts go places. Do you know what I mean? We're in an age right now where game companies are like so much more beholden to their player base and their fan base and criticism, where even if they don't answer it right now, or even if they don't listen to it right now, if you keep making noise, they tend to respond. So as much as it, a plug like, hey, engage on this thing, legitimately write down what you think and talk about it, because it's important.
Yeah, absolutely. And it can lead to things. Start a podcast, start streaming. Do something with it. I think the worst thing you can do when you have criticism is just bottle it up and then release it in rage, right? If you can do something with it, like that's better for the whole community in general. Um, and I think creative expression of your disinterest is far better, right? Um, this is a good tangent. But we are gone so long. Uh,
Yeah,
sorry,
sorry.
Rush.
Hey,
Yeah.
sorry. Sorry,
Uh,
editor.
And
Appreciate
I
you.
didn't even get a chance to say
Materials wings.
in this
uh,
episode either.
oh, there it is.
Perfect. Hit 100% accuracy.
Imperial's wings. Uh,
Yeah. I
so
guess
Talk about
soon it's going to be
Anaris'
as soon as I was just
or
about to say as soon as going to be Anaris' wings. So yeah.
can we talk about just real quick? Can we talk about that trailer though? In the
host
Halsey
show,
performance that
host
game. Can we
show.
talk about it?
We're going so long. Host show.
Sorry.
We're gonna talk. We will talk. We're gonna do a post show. Um, before we close out here, I've been really bad about this with you, Neinball. Macro, I don't have to apologize to you. But Neinball, where can people find you that's not this podcast?
I'm on Twitter at Neinball Gamer, and
Uh-huh.
I do have my own podcast, the West March Workshop, which is pseudo in uh, purgatory at the moment as I figure out my real life schedule. And if we're talking about being busy and all those other types of things, and prioritizing stuff, so I do have an episode planned soon.
I
Where we
believe it's
go
about the
through
most recent
the deck
book.
recording.
Am I
It,
incorrect on that?
it No, you are not incorrect. You are absolutely 100%
Because I pay
right on that
attention
one.
to your Twitter, and I don't have the most recent book, so I'm excited to hear you talk about it.
Yeah.
And then
We finally have some new lore, and so some stuff that I really I'm excited to talk about. So yeah,
and I need
expect
that
that actually probably in like the coming week.
something to listen to. Um,
Very excited.
and then Macro, where can we find you on everything, obviously?
Literally everything. I'm at MacroBioBoi. It's BIOBOI. Get it? It's like an anagram. MacroBioBoi. Twitch, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You Google me, you'll find it. It's there.
LinkedIn.
I just want to talk more about Neinball, talking about the Book of Lorath. I am generally held as one of the lore heavier nerds in the D2 space. I actually read the dialogue and I've looked up stuff after, and then I just listen to Neinball and I'm like, oh, look at this person who actually knows anything that he's talking about. Oh, damn. So yeah, actually, if you're gonna Google me, actually just Google Neinball, and please have me on Westmart. Please just have me on Westmart. I just want to learn more about this game, please.
There's a connection. We're making
Let's
it
talk.
happen.
Let's talk.
We'll do a post show. All right. So we're gonna close as we always do with a moo moo moo.
Moo 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 moo.
Moo.